I welcome you all to this webinar, Innovations in the Times of COVID-19. The basis of this webinar is to know more about the epidemic and highlight the changing practices of the innovations at workplace. So I'm really happy that we have got today in attendance of somewhere around 42 people, and the demographically representation maximum is from India, which happens to be at 65%. We have got people joining in from France, Germany, Malaysia, Singapore, Switzerland as well. So happy to see so many attendees. Now, in our panelist group today, we have Mr. Kiran Avrad. He and his team have been closely monitoring and working on COVID-19 cases. He is deputed in Gulbarga, Karnataka, where the first death case in the whole India for COVID-19 was recorded. He comes to elaborate here on the genesis and hygiene management to oneself and the workplace. Apart from this, we have Mr. Amit Lal, who is the head of Workspace Solutions, Sodexo. He's a seasoned workspace strategy and change professional, currently heading workspace solutions for corporate services segment with Sodexo. He'll be talking on the evolution of the facility management industry due to this epidemic. Joining him, we also have Mr. Sichia, who is the Senior Vice President, Corporate Development and Strategy at Chia Team Maintenance PTE Limited, who will be giving an insight into the Singapore preparedness and handling of this epidemic. Also in the panel, we have got Mr. Love Agarwal, who is the CEO and founder of Smart Clean Technologies. He'll be stressing more on the technological advancement and how technology can transform to the changing cleaning methodologies which are going to be incorporated during this epidemic. So I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. So we'll be starting the webinar with Mr. Kiran Avrad, Dr. Kiran Avrad, who will be speaking more on the epidemic part. Kiran, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Can you hear me, Vidya?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Look. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Kiran, pediatrician from Kalburgi, where you all know where the first case of COVID-19 death was recorded in our country. So, firstly, we shall see regarding the mainly myths regarding the COVID-19 part. So, the people do ask me, they ask frequently, like, can pets at home spread this new coronavirus? So, at present, there is no any such evidence that companion animals or pets, such as dogs or cats, can be infected or it can spread through them. And there's often debate regarding the antibiotics in the use of this coronavirus battle. So, as such, there is no any evidence of antibiotics in preventing this disease or fighting against this coronavirus disease. And as such, today there are no any specific medications to prevent the disease or to treat this coronavirus. So many countries in the world are trying to prepare vaccines. So hopefully by this year end, like December or Jan of next year, we may be ready with the vaccine. So currently, the main point to get immunized regarding this is herd immunity. That's it. At your workplaces and all and the other places you come in contact, so you need to keep spraying alcohol or chlorine all over that workplaces. And so spraying of alcohol based solutions or any soap based liquid, this thing, it doesn't actually kill the viruses which have already entered your body. So it can only just prevent the viruses entering into your body. That's it. And the next main point regarding is even people ask me like, are the hand dryers effective in killing this coronavirus? Hand dryers and all, they're not really effective in killing this novel coronavirus. uh, and this coronavirus is it specifically doesn't affect this that particular age group, like only older people and all, and all the people of all the age group can be affected equally. And nowadays recently I've seen that even pediatric cases are being affected. A 1 month child, a 4 month old baby, in our place itself. And in somewhere in Japan, we have noted a newborn getting affected with coronavirus. So, uh, what is this coronavirus? Coronavirus, it's a large family of beta viruses actually. So this novel coronavirus is actually a new strain that has been developed due to mutations, various mutations occurring, and that has led to a drastic pandemic all over the country. This novel coronavirus strain, this can cause the severity of the disease. It may vary from like mild illness. This illness could be just like a simple flu to very severe acute respiratory syndrome. It can cause death within few days. And coming to the source of infection, so the main source of infection, as you know, it's a zoonotic disease. It means that it mainly spreads from the animals. We have already seen the first case, which has in Wuhan, which have been mainly spread through the bats, mainly bats. It can also spread through other animals like cats, cattle, camels, and all. Spread this the spread of this infection, it leads to as I have previously spoke regarding this mild illness to severe illness. And we have read somewhere in the social media regarding the spread in animals as well. So spread of infections in humans is very rapid and very drastic. So we need to maintain person to person distance, mainly at the working places. Like it may be in your normal working places, or no, even simple household people also need to maintain this social distancing, mainly to prevent this spread. So minimum of like 5 to 6 feet distance to be maintained, and avoid close contact with other persons. So it can directly spread through droplet spread, or it can spread even from the infected surfaces. So we need to continuously keep cleaning the surfaces. Like it could be either your it could be using your mobiles, laptops, or some files in your offices, and surfaces that you're working. You need to continuously uh, cleaning the surfaces. Can this spread? Can someone spread the virus without being sick? Yes, they can, but it is to a lesser extent than with the symptomatic patients. The symptomatic patients, the sick patients, they really spread the viruses very rapidly than asymptomatic patients. So coming to symptoms, it could vary from mild symptomatic illness to very drastic severe illness. Mild severe illness could be just a simple flu like fever, cough, cold, running nose, and there will be a cough not also with any sputum. It will be a simple dry cough, and there will be severe. The main specific symptom of this is there will be severe myalgia and severe body pain that could later lead on to respiratory failure, kidney failure, and multiple various disorders leading to MODS. We call it as MODS in a medical term. Uh, Coming to the incidents around disease without requiring any special training regarding this disease. The in 80 to 85% of people, it will be just mild flu-like symptoms. So just don't get panic regarding this novel coronavirus. And about just 2 to 5% of the people with the disease have been died till date. And incubation period for this virus is about 2 to 14 days, and the average incubation period is like around 5 to 6 days. So the people throw symptoms after 5 to 6 days of exposing after getting exposed to the virus. So they mainly come with complaints of, as I already spoke, like fever, cough, myalgia, shortness of breath. That is, we call it as dyspnea or medical term. And there could be even sore throat. Less commonly reported symptoms like sputum production, nausea, headache, diarrhea, and nowadays in a few cases are reported with alteration in the taste sensation. So, what are the risk factors who may get infected with this disease? So, most of the patients above 50 to 55 years, they are actually at risk patients, and people with underlying comorbidities such as diabetes, hypers, they are at risk actually. As younger generation of age, most of them will be asymptomatic. So no need to worry among the younger generations. The clinical course of this disease may vary, like asymptomatic to very severe fatal illness. It could be either pneumonia or they develop we call it as ARDS, that is respiratory distress syndrome, landing up in the ventilator and severe deaths. Yeah, there could be either some cardiac injuries, arrhythmia, shock, and many other system might be involved. And our government is planning for various of diagnostic tools, and it's spending a lot of money regarding diagnosis. It is mainly based on diagnosis confirmation of the disease. They take some nasal swab and throat swab samples. That is on day one, and second sampling is also done if the first sample is negative. Other tests like routine investigations, they'll be doing like your complete blood picture and all. And in severe cases, they might require CT scan, MRI of the chest, your thorax. Uh, so you need to avoid close contact with people who are at sick, and avoid touching of your eyes, nose, and mouth, and stay home if you are sick, and cover your cover your cough or sneeze with the tissue. Then you need to throw that tissue in the trash. Clean and disinfect the places frequently you're touched in the at your workplaces, like it could be either laptops, mobiles, files, and all the things which you uh, touched at your offices or workplaces. So you need to continuously keep washing your hands frequently by minimum of at least 20 seconds. So this could be either by using either your alcohol based or simple soap based solution could be used, which actually kills the virus very easily.
Thank you, Kiran. You have illuminated such crucial aspects on this epidemic. Now we believe it was a very helpful conversation. Now, moving on into the webinar, we do believe that hearing to Dr. Kiran, that workspace hygiene becomes a major aspect to this, as well as monitoring these hygiene norms is also, the call for the hour. Now, since monitoring comes into picture a lot, we would like to move further, and I would like to introduce Mr. Amit Lal. He would be speaking more on monitoring and hygiene aspects in the workplace and how facility management is coping up this scenario.
Okay, thank you so much. So good afternoon, everybody, and good morning to and good evening to wherever you are. So I think thanks for setting up this webinar. I think it's a very crucial time we are facing across every dimension of life and business. So this is like we say, it's an unprecedented situation as everybody is calling it in the mankind's history, and therefore it really calls for an equally and even better unprecedented response so that we win over it. And facilities management is equally impacted as any other industries. In fact, we are exposed to the larger every dimension of business as we manage the facilities, right from healthcare to remote sites to corporate offices and even education institutes. So it's interesting to see how each of these industries is getting impacted. Some are actually getting benefited, but are largely in the short term and the intermediate term are going to be impacted. So definitely the workplace is poised to redefine itself. There's going to be an increased focus on wellness, hygiene, safety of the people, driven by social distancing, and all of this will together redefine how work really happens, and it's going to be a combination of on-site and remote collaboration. So I'll move to the next slide. So the whole purpose of this document or of this presentation is to really walk you through the key implications for the FM industry and the operators, and also what are the imperatives in terms of what are the key actions that you need to take. So what we have done for the ease of this discussion is identified broadly about 4 buckets of change that we are witnessing as a FM industry. So the first and foremost is social distancing and personal hygiene, applicable to every dimension of life, including ours. The second is sanitation and safety. Of course, we manage large facilities of various large and small, both of course of varied sizes and varied typologies of from a functionality point of view. So sanitation and safety is the foremost factor right now. So the first 2 are most important. The last 2 are more of enablers or a part of the part of the larger impact on the industry. So the third one is the acceleration and adoption of automation and technology, which will really help us enable social distancing, enable personal hygiene, and as well as sanitization. The last one is remote working model. As we all know that we are amidst the biggest remote working experiment of the world, and a lot of companies are making positive changes to their policy. And in the times to come, we are actually already seeing by some of the large IT giants making very bold statements about tweaking their workplace policy. So they're saying, some of them are saying they will make only 25% of their workforce work from the offices and on a rotational basis. That means anyone does not get to spend more than 25% of the working time in the office. So 75% of the time they work remotely. So I think even there have been some very bold statements from the conventional and traditional automotive manufacturers in India. So I think it's really interesting to see how this evolves, but largely remote working is turning out to be effective. So coming back to the first point of social distancing and personal hygiene, I think the impact is clearly that we're going to observe a really high level of hygiene, personal hygiene amongst the employees and people at large. And this will also be driven by how we really plan and leverage the space that we have, the physical space itself. Because right now we have about a good range of 80 to 120 square feet of usable area per employee. With the social distancing norms setting in, we are required to maintain at least a 6 feet distance. With the current ratios, the distance is between anywhere between 2 to 3 feet, not even 3 feet, probably 2 feet between 2 employees. Again, it can differ from industry to industry, so I'm just looking at an average. So ensuring a 6 feet distance will mean doubling the space per employee. So which will really mean as to how well you leverage your space. So we'll see how that works out. But in terms of the imperatives to ensure the right hygiene levels, safety of the people, and the right kind of usage of space, when you restart your offices, it's really important to put together a back to work program, an integrated approach that really ensures the aspects of safety, sanitization, hygiene, wellness, technology, all of it put together in a single program, seamlessly managed. And I will talk a bit more about how that can look like. I've already spoken about space planning, so effective space planning, using technology, using manual interventions, and even making design changes, retrofits to your existing projects, or making design concepts coming out in the new greenfield projects that really accommodate or address the social distancing norms. In fact, prior to this webinar, I was on a call with one of the industry body and somebody from a large developer, a senior person from a developer point of view mentioned that in their new projects, they've already started imbibing those designs on the blueprint now. So as we go ahead in a couple of years, those things will become evident. Sorry, I think I have not moved further on the, okay, let me just, yeah. So, all right. Then thirdly, on the social distancing and personal hygiene point of view, the biggest thing we encounter is to touch common interfaces. So going contactless in terms of the interfaces is going to be the norm in the times to come, and a lot of innovation can be seen both in terms of the physical infrastructure as well as leveraging technology. I'm sure some of you must have seen these apps which can help you open the elevator without touching the button. So you just press the lift, the floor number, and it tells you which lift to take. Likewise, there's a whole dimension of touchless, contactless touch points that we need to create, and it could be around the reprographics areas where you print out, or your mail room, your vending machines, your food plates and cutleries and cups. It all starts with the parking as well. The moment you enter, you have the reception. So how you really allow a visitor to get access with a contactless visitor management entry. So all of these things, and the list is really huge. You can think of a thing, maybe lockers, your gyms, your desks, keyboards, keypads, everything. So I don't want to get into the list, but then I think I just want to tell you that the scope is really large there. And we need to think as part of the back to work program as to how we address each of these touch points. We really need to define how frequently these touch points are used and what kind of sanitization and cleaning practices you want to imbibe. So I'll delve a bit more deeper into the cleaning practices in my next point. But just to talk about the back to work program, which is the key priority of every facility manager or every CRE executive. In fact, the larger business at this moment, because they want to get the people back to work as the lockdown gradually opens across the world. So that's where you need to really visualize as to how they will move in. You need to really visualize in terms of in a day in life of diagram, in terms of what are the touch points the moment you leave your office and you enter in the office, spend time there, or maybe even when you are spending time outside at a client site or in a co-working space to do your work. And then figure out what are the touch points which can really impact you. So right now, I will talk more from your own office space, not the external spaces. So you really, you have the commuting part, you arrive at the site, there should be a temperature monitoring that should happen to allow you inside the office, a contactless, swipe card, which normally is already there. In terms of letting you work in a safe environment, there has to be preventive disinfection cleaning that has to happen. Of course, when you're spending 40% of your time in a day at a workplace, whenever you go there, you need to be fed well. So I'm sure they're going to be, apprehensions in terms of eating from outside. But there are definitely innovative offers. Companies like Sodexo and even our competitors are really bringing in globally into the new era post-COVID. So we will see as we move further and we roll these things out. But definitely refreshments and grab and go kind of concepts will start coming in. Touchless vending machines will set in. We're already working from our side. We're working with partners to install these at some of these client sites. In terms of the meeting rooms, again, these are highly frequented areas by people, and they have to really undergo reactive, in fact, proactive disinfection. So every time a meeting happens, it has to be cleaned. So likewise, the whole journey throughout, the quality of air, the quality of light, all of these things, have to set in, and a lot of role will be played by technology. So that's again our subsequent point. But I spent some more time here because this is the most important point, and then is sanitization as well. So moving on to my second point on sanitization and safety. Before you really open the workplace and get people back to work, it's important to undergo a deep cleaning, and the global bodies such as OSHA, your CDC, WHO, even the industry bodies such as Coronet and IFMA and various other such similar bodies at a country level also are coming up with their own revised protocols and standards for cleaning policies, right? And cleaning activities, which defines what kind of equipments have to be used, what kind of PPE has to be used, which is personal protective equipment, what kind of cleaning equipments can be used. Companies are even going for robotics and automation, but that's my second point in my third aspect. At the same time, so we need to keep an eye. So those who are really closely watching, looking at this sector, need to really be in touch with what's happening through these industry bodies, and because those are the best practices, and and the standards that are going to be imbibed by the industry, and definitely they're much stricter than what it used to be in the past, right? In terms of your sanitization infrastructure upgrade, all I want to say is that it's really important to understand what kind of equipment and technology you want to bring in, what kind of consumables you want to bring in, and what kind of volumes. So it's important for facility managers, the service providers especially, to consolidate the demand, streamline their supply chain, hold up firmly with their partners who supply these things to them, and have the right prices and the right availability at the right time. Because in terms of the manufacturing, every country is going for a phased opening, and therefore there's definitely going to be a shortage. So the stronger your partnership and the stronger and seamless your supply chain is at this stage, the better your chances of winning are. In terms of the imperatives on this side, we're going to see increased cleaning frequency, like I said, and especially for the highly frequented areas. So we need to clearly identify those touch points, and the cleaning, what used to happen once in a day, is now happening at least 6 to 10 times in a day, right? And these are numbers from the US and Australia, which where facilities are already operating right now to some extent. And as we get more and more people back to work, these are going to probably go further up. So we will see with time. This is an ever evolving thing right now, and over the next few months, all of these thoughts will get further refined. And again, in terms of your teams who are operating the facilities, it's really important to quickly have a dipstick check of their capabilities and training levels, because certain findings within the industry show that almost probably 2/3 of people are really not ready to cater to the COVID facilities management requirements. So you need to really quickly scale them up to use the right technology, right tools, and the PPE and the chemicals, and know the process as well. So it's important to highlight, put together your SOPs, or put together the maybe QR code based training programs. So you scan a QR code in a certain area, you quickly see what steps to follow to clean it, and stuff like that. So those things are very, very important. So the safety of the people, the training of the people, and most importantly, the availability of the people, because a lot of the people who do the facilities management job, they come from different towns, smaller towns rather. And right now, a lot of that workforce has gone back to their native places, and we need to see how we can convince them, encourage them, motivate them, and get them back to work. So, but for sure, it's not going to be at 100% capacity for two reasons. One, that they're away. Secondly, that even the clients would not want the full capacity at the workplace, but having the right team is important. Going contactless, I've already covered. So we can see from a hygiene point of view, a lot of contactless dispensers being installed for hand dispensing, hand sanitizer dispensing, or maybe soap dispensing, and various other functionality applications of that. Already mentioned, get your supply chain right. So I skipped that point. Moving to accelerate adoption of automation and technology. This is really interesting. So I think we need to clearly set one rule right, that technology is going to be an enabler. And we really need to identify the right use cases, and also identify the right business case, so that you can go back to and convince your clients to deploy those technologies. So broadly, there are about 10 or 11 use cases that really hold strong in the COVID specific scenario right now. And investments are going to be really, really prioritized right in this scenario, at least in the 6 to 9 months time frame, as we address the back to work program. So to know what those are, and then maybe I'll shed some light on that as well. It's very, very important. And especially understanding and explaining the business case to the clients is very important, so that they understand the nuances and the importance of your use case from a technology standpoint in the COVID scenario, right? It'll definitely help you fill in the gaps in the labor shortage. No doubt it'll increase the quality and efficiency and improve the end user experience. I will talk about the use cases later, but I think one more thing that technology has to really enable is the wellness aspect when people are working remotely. So how really you can come up with more innovative ways of interacting and engaging with your clients' employees and make them collaborate, because typically wellness is seen as a part of the FM domain, combined with the nutrition side as well. So moving on to the applications and imperatives, probably robotics and cobotics is definitely one of the key areas where you want to ensure the common areas free of janitors and cleaning staff. So robotic cleaners, autonomous robotic cleaners, cobotics, which is a combination of manual and robotic processes, is going to be the key. Smart cleaning solutions, so putting on sensors in the washrooms probably, and even common areas, to really let you know when the cleaning is needed, when the air quality goes bad, or the floor is wet, or the dispenser does not have, is out of sanitizer or the soap, and even so for the paper towels. So likewise, I think we need to think more and more innovatively in terms of seeing how technology can be used. But just to give you a flavor of what those areas could be, cafeteria is definitely one of those where you need to have app-based ordering, where you need to have even contactless vending machines. Security, definitely the most important one, because you talk about disinfected tunnels, you talk about drones for surveillance, you talk about your thermal screening using your cameras and the other technologies that are around it. But thermal imaging cameras are going to be one of the key things at this stage. Surface cleaners, so basically your shoe cleaners, your shoe, shoe surface cleaner as well as the sole cleaner. So those things are also coming in. In terms of parking solutions, you may want to look at automated parking solutions instead of manual parking slips. So again, going contactless there as well. Sensor-based motion light switches, so that you don't end up touching, even if the facility management guys are operating the switches, they also don't touch it. So I think that's one of the other areas. I've already spoken about sensors and robot-based cleaning. So I think that's pretty much. So broadly, if I have to categorize, you have the cleaning automation and robotization, you have body temperature monitoring, you have the office space lighting and air systems, you have parking systems, you have security systems, and you have food and beverage vending and ordering systems. So how we really package and position it, not that these things are not there in the marketplace, but I think we really need to think how the COVID specific use cases can be packaged around it and be marketed to the clients to ensure that social distancing, hygiene, and sanitization are really ensured to the maximum possible level. Lastly, remote working model, already mentioned, world's largest remote working experiment is on and successful so far. Maybe going to be the norm at a large scale going forward. How we as FM providers need to see, FM and food providers need to see, is that definitely there's a hit on some of the areas because of the remote working model, such as food revenue that we earn by serving food on site, and even frequency-based, walk-in based cleaning rather, let's say that of the pantries and that of the washrooms. So that is definitely going to take a hit. Companies are also going to acquire alternative workplace strategy. So the experts globally are talking about not having a single office approach in a city, have multiple offices, so one main office and maybe a couple of co-working offices or your shared spaces. That's where I think one key characteristic of this workforce is that it is going to be dispersed, right, and virtually connected and collaborative. So what we need to ensure on that front is that we help our clients really build a robust wellness mechanism and framework in place and operationalize it successfully. So telehealth and wellness is going to gain traction. On the remote working model side, ergonomics will also gain attraction because a lot of people will be working from home, and companies may want to provide furniture to them, and in a lot of cases we do the move management. So maybe those are some of the new areas where we want to enter the business. There's definitely the biggest opportunity, which is new food models, as to how we partner with the larger ecosystem within the food space and that of the client organization, and ensure the people on site and maybe even off site, as in the remote locations, are being fed with the right healthy food and safe food. Again, I've already mentioned about the flexi workspaces providers, flexi workspaces, but it is probably the right time for us to look at strategic partnerships with some of these providers where probably our client employees might be working, because one key concern for clients would be to ensure the same level of sanitization and hygiene and the quality of food and vending served to their employees at other locations as much as possible. So probably some of these partnerships can really help FM providers go a long way. And lastly, to package all of the remote working model together, a remote working concierge services, which we already do globally in various formats, which further needs to be refined definitely for this purpose, can really help. So remote work concierge services, which means anything and everything from a facility standpoint or a support standpoint that an employee may need while working remotely, we should be able to provide. So these are some thoughts, especially in the last bucket. I just tried to think aloud and plot a few things. A lot of things are happening in that domain, but definitely the first three are really, really important. It's important for you to visualize what a day in life of your client's employee looks like, where does your specific use case fits in, and how really you want to reposition it, in terms of the COVID scenario. So, and how well integrated. So depending on which industry you are from and how you're associated with the FM landscape, it's important for you to visualize, identify the touch point, articulate your value proposition for your clients, exhibit to them how really it is a good business case for them to invest in. Because one thing is for sure, and before I conclude, is for sure, is that there is going to be a discretionary spending. The revenues are going to be hit. Therefore, the cost is definitely going to be very, very cautiously looked at. And given COVID, there are definitely priority areas. So my suggestion is look at holistically, look at specifically from your specific use case point of view, and try to build a strong business case.
Moving on, worldwide epidemic, which has rattled all national and international states. To get an insight of how Singapore facility management teams are coping up with the current scenario, wherein the current state has recorded 9,000 plus cases, I would request Mr. Sichia to take up the further part of the presentation.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. I just to correct the moderator's point, Singapore numbers have exceeded more than 11,000 as we speak today. So to add on to what the last two speakers have mentioned, we are facing a time of great uncertainty, and a lot of things are evolving on a daily basis. So I will come in more to share on what we have seen and what we are still evolving as well. I don't think anyone has the absolute answer to how to handle it totally. And also I'll maybe share a bit on how Singapore has tried to handle it as well, and then see how all of us can improve going forward. But before that, maybe just a quick introduction. I come from an organization called Chaitiam Maintenance, or CTM for short. We are a 41-year-old cleaning and waste management company in Singapore. We are actively involved in wide areas, different sectors of the cleaning industry, from airport to government infrastructure to commercial buildings, retail malls, to public areas like highways and public conservancies, and so on and so forth. So earlier on, Mr. Amit Lau mentioned about how different areas have different touch points and frequency of cleaning. It is very true, because for different areas, the requirements is very, very different. But I think one thing that I would like to highlight right now as well is that as the team, as my guys are deployed on a daily basis out there, the greatest challenge every day is really on the safety, and the safety not just of my people, but the safety of the customers, as well as the safety of whoever might come after if we do not clean it properly. So that is one of the greatest risks every day when my guys go out. We as management team really fear, because while we have to do our job, but we hope that everybody stays safe and do not end up being one of the clusters that actually spread the virus. So I just want to do a quick snapshot. These are how a few of the interim guidelines that the National Environmental Agency of Singapore, the NEA, has actually issued various interim guidelines over the last couple of months since when COVID-19, or even before that it was called officially as COVID-19, has started servicing in Singapore. As you can see from the slides, some of these were released as early as January, February, and constantly issuing new amendments as well. It ranged from guidelines on telling the cleaning crew as well as facilities owners what are the minimum that are needed to do, what are the personal hygiene or the housekeeping requirements on site, that the minimum that they should do. And it can range from the frequency of disinfecting the areas, what are the areas that are higher risk and you should focus on, how you should handle your rubbish, how you should disinfect your bin centers, so on and so forth. So that's one set of guidelines. We also have issued guidelines for the end users as well, because as cases start popping up, there are a lot of confusion sometimes is that if a potential case actually has been identified by the authorities, but that person is not confirmed yet as a confirmed case, but the colleagues or even the residents who are staying in the same condos, for example, might be very, very worried. So what are the steps that the residential or the office should follow, and what type of cleaning rectification measures need to be activated as well? Then they also issue guidelines on how, if they have a confirmed case, what are the next step of measures that you need to engage in, what are the type of companies that you actually need to bring in, and so on and so forth. So the way of doing things have totally changed. I mean, if you're from Singapore, you will know that the cleaning industry is actually regulated by NEA. And we actually have mandatory training modules that our cleaners need to go through. Chaitiam is actually a approved training organization for our own internal staff as well. And I would say out of the 13, 14 modules that we had for our own cleaners, none of the modules involve pandemic cleaning. Although we have a pandemic team that is actually specially trained and equipped with to handle pandemic cleaning, but for the general cleaners, this was never an area of focus or is in a general cleaning training module as well. So the way of doing things with all the new guidelines that the government has issued has totally put on a different mindset on how do you go about doing your things normally, not just for ourselves but also for the building owners as well. And to bring back the points brought up by the two previous speakers on social distancing, personal hygiene, and all this. Actually, the whole idea right now today is really what we are used to do in the past is no longer applicable. And if we are not able to accept that, I think all of us will have great challenges surviving this period. And most probably, as what Amit mentioned earlier on, when we start the coming back to work type of program starts happening, that will need a bit of mindset for everybody as well. So just to give a bit of flavor of what has happened on the ground. So besides the additional safety precaution, the temperature taking and all this, on the site, every morning and evening, temperature taking is compulsory. And if you're not feeling well, you're advised not to come in. If you're having a fever, you're advised to go and see a doctor. But this has become very, very, very standard. I think what the client and ourselves have been implementing in the recent weeks actually will be more in terms of how do you further institutionalize the social distancing into our work. As everyone will know, cleaning requires a lot of human beings. They work shifts and normally they're deployed as teams. So how do you actually practice social distancing into the SOP and in the way they work? So what we have done, and some of what our customers have done, is that they split their teams into team A and team B, and they are rostered differently so that the teams do not meet or come in contact with each other if they need to come into office. So they come in different days. So for example, I have sites where my teams are doing 3 days and they rest 4 days, and the other team will come in for the other 3 days and rest another 4 days, and they will follow that throughout for this period. For those sites that do not follow team A and B in such a manner, we actually discuss with the client and then get a permission for them to start work differently, so that the different teams start work at staggered timing, and they also have different meal times as well. And we encourage our colleagues not to eat together as well, so that there's also less risk of cross contamination. And the latest that we have that the government has also introduced is that even the cross deployment of staff across different sites have also been minimized as well, so that we can really reduce cross contamination. Because especially in times like this, where the entire or majority of the country is actually been closed for business, actually the one that is really moving around are actually the essential services workers, and they could be, if not monitored properly, they could actually be a very potential source of the transmission as well. So one of the things that we face, of course, is that if workers are being issued stay-home orders, if they are not feeling well, and the whole team might have to be issued stay-home orders, how do you juggle that? Besides having a constant conversation with the customers and to work around the manpower, I think it's especially times like this that machines, automation, and the adoption of technology is more critical than ever. We have been deploying robots for a while now, but of course, as we all know, robots can only be involved in general cleaning. So the deep cleaning that we mentioned, the high touch points, areas that we need to clean up frequently, those are areas that the robots cannot do for now. But at least when you deploy the robots to do the general cleaning, the scrubbing, the vacuuming, it frees up the human to focus on those high touch point work as well. So besides all this, I think going forward, the future, where we see learning from the experience and the challenges we face today, and from the discussion that we have with the government as well, I think going forward, there are a few trends that we see that are likely to happen for the industry, for both FM as well as cleaning industry. Besides pushing out for more robots and more smart toilet systems, monitoring systems, where we can make it more efficient and reduce the manpower where possible. The other thing will be that regular disinfecting will become a norm, rather than right now where you have a confirmed case or you actually have a suspect case, then you go in to do the deep cleaning. From our discussion and conversation with some of the customers that we have been helping, especially the MNCs or the educational sectors, it's most likely that going forward, I think they will expect routine, or even shopping centers for the matter, the shopping malls, they most probably expect a different level of disinfecting, cleaning going forward as well on a more regular basis. So which leads me to my last point, is that then in terms of equipment, in terms of chemicals, we need to look at new technology, new equipment, and new chemicals that can be easy to deploy, safe for the human being, and at the same time be effective as well. Yeah, so I think that's all I have for now.
Hello everyone. Just to give a quick background about what we do as a company, we are a IoT and AI startup, and we build end-to-end digital systems, digital cleaning systems to monitor the property in real time, and then based on the collected data, we do data analytics and alerting to kind of optimize the cleaning operations and improve the well-being of the occupants of the building. So today, from the technical point of view, I'll actually be covering two sides. First thing is, what are the solutions which are being adopted in the short term? By short term, I mean that as we are recovering from the changes, or let's say as we are coming back to the workplaces over the next 3 to 6 months or a year, it'll still be in the time of recovery. And these will be the typical short time where we'll be seeing the solutions with getting adapted, which might stay on and become the norm for the long-term changes, or may end as the facilities normalize. So, and one of the primary factors I should also emphasize on that, especially for workplaces or even tourist spots, retail locations, as the employees or let's say the visitors start going back to the locations, one of the primary responsibilities of the FM team, or let's say the building teams, will also be to make sure that the employees feel safe and do not feel that they're going to be infected, etc. at the workplaces. So as Mr. Amit had also mentioned and emphasized on that, a lot of changes will also start happening from the contact-based interfaces to contactless services, etc. So in this slide, I'm illustrating all the different touch points that typically happen in the workplace, starting from when an employee arrives the office, through the parking lot, or through access control, etc., all the way to working at the workstation, through the meeting rooms, all the way to using the indoor spaces, breaking for lunch, and the cafeterias, etc., to ending the work at the work location. So different touch points, as in, I mean, starting from the parking lot, there are already systems in place which do beacon-based, IoT sensor-based systems which do occupancy monitoring, etc. This will also start moving towards more of contactless systems, in the sense of from ticketing systems where people do have to swipe a card, take printouts, etc., all the way to contactless digital payment-based systems which do not need touching of any surfaces. Emphasizing on in terms of the properties having multiple access points, because even for visitors, etc., who are coming in through a parking lot, they should not be actually exposed to other visitors who may be infected, or all the way to common entrances, employee or let's say visitor check-in points. So there might be actually need of monitoring systems, thermal cam-based monitoring system, etc., to be installed at various places, and the contact tracing apps, etc. So as we see today, I mean, once let's say an employee reaches an entrance, or visitor reaches the receiving station, the typical systems are already in place in some of the properties are the tablet-based check-in systems, where a user can enter their details, and then they get email confirmation and then a notification to the host in the organization. But these will also be moving towards more of contactless based system, where some systems which we are seeing around is also, for example, host already sending a pre-invite to which the visitor can actually scan the QR code or some code, and then directly the alert is sent to the host, etc. All the way to transitioning to facial recognition FR-based systems, in the sense of some of the properties already do have facial recognition-based employee systems, to also guest management systems as well. So facial recognition FR may become the new norm, in the sense of also to emphasize on, I mean, one more point, that employers or the company's facility teams might want to tie these data points to the checkpoints, in the sense that every time an employee checks in and the temperatures are being taken using facial recognition based system or checkpoint data, these time and the date timestamps might actually be tagged to the temperature and all, and to ensure that everything is normal, so that when audits happen, or let's say when tracing happens, if an incident breaks out, then it's easy to track and trace what went wrong. In terms of space management, in terms of workplace management, another thing that is happening a lot is that in context of spaces all the way from office locations to co-working spaces, a lot of densification has happened, in the sense of per person square footage has gone down, which because of social distancing, etc., distancing norms, etc., I should say, the space per person will have to be increased. And then again, space optimization solutions such as beacon or occupancy presence sensors at the individual workstation, or other locations to kind of optimize the overall placement of the employees, or the net occupancy will also start becoming the new norm, because facility teams will have to do more with less space. Also in terms of personalized temperature zones, also to emphasize on wellness portion of measurement of real-time temperature, humidity, etc., all from IoT sensors will also start becoming norm, in the sense of also to have an optimal temperature, not to propagate the virus, etc. as well. In terms of cafeteria management systems, etc., as Mr. Amit also mentioned, there are already systems in place in some locations, I'll say. I mean, there are still paper-based systems or physical ordering-based systems in some cafeterias, but in some cafeterias there are already e-ordering system, such that the user, or let's say employee, won't have to actually touch any surface, but rather they can pre-order or order from the app, and contactless payment through payment wallets, etc. also happens. So completing the entire chain, value chain, in the sense of almost a contactless experience, in order to reduce the possibility of emission of viruses, etc. Moving on to our specialty, which is the cleaning domain. So hygiene monitoring, I mean, will become more and more important, in the sense of there are IoT systems, for example, washroom monitoring, in the sense of monitoring different parameters, all the way from odor. So does the washroom has any form of smelliness, all the way to usage pattern, consumables, all the way from paper towel, toilet paper, soap solution to sanitizers, all of that in real time, to kind of move the model from schedule based, which is a cleaning team or a operation team goes in every half an hour or 1 hour to spot check different parts of the property, to make it more data driven, in the sense of going only when there's a need and the alert comes in. So which is also called the concept is called on-demand cleaning, or service on demand. So that will also start becoming more as a norm, because the facility teams will have to reduce also the exposure. So another important factor that we are also hearing a lot from the cleaning teams or the FM teams we work with is that as facilities start opening up, one of the bigger things the tenants or let's say the FM teams might also ask for is that the users or that is the employees of the building, etc., won't want to see too much of the operation team. So emphasizing more on than the again on-demand models is that the cleaning team or let's say the operation team going only on an on-demand model where they are needed, etc. So moving on to the 4 major drivers of the digital transformation in the facility management industry. Sorry, the slide. Yep. Okay. So in terms of the main 4 drivers of the digital transformation in the FM industry today, starting from IoT, the real-time sensing, from the sensors giving all the data points that are needed to kind of do any form of analytics to get some actionable outcome for getting any business insight to optimize the cleaning operation, security operation, it can be any FM operation. So another point to emphasize here also is that, I mean, giving an example specifically from the domains of cleaning and security, because these are the 2 most people-intensive FM domain. So what will also happen is that because as Mr. Amit and Mr. Shishya mentioned that the facilities or the norm might also become that the places which are very heavily used might need to be cleaned 5 or 10 times of what they are being done today. So as a part of audit, the cleaning teams might also be asked to show a proof of work, in the sense of that they actually went down to spot check or touch up the surface, etc. Also in terms of performance and audit. So IoT sensors, or let's say beacon-based localization and occupancy monitoring that actually the cleaner, so for example, systems such as location-specific, location-aware beacons, which kind of trigger a specific app-based notification to the cleaners when they come in the proximity, might start becoming the norm as a proof of work that actually the cleaner went to that space to perform some action at that specific time of time and how many times in a day. So those might also become actual data points to perform any form of audit. Also to add on in terms of cleanliness monitoring, or let's say other kind of monitorings which give real-time data. So for example, in a smart washroom use case, how many times the washroom was dirty, how many times the dispensers were empty, and then the alerts were triggered, etc. So these kind of data points will also become as point of audit in the sense of if that alert was triggered, did the cleaning team resolve it? If not, were they escalated, etc., etc. So these points will also add on to the on-demand cleanliness-based systems, cleanliness monitoring system. So today, in terms of so much IoT data or sensor data, when we talk about putting sensor almost in every aspect of the property, we are collecting so much amount of big data, but then again, the problem that happens is that most of the data is not clean. And then from an FM perspective, how do you make sense of such a big data? So then again, I mean, there are a lot of domain specific applications, I should say, which are then also pre-cleaning the data and doing predictive analytics on the data such that it can then make sense of any patterns which show up. For example, how is the usage pattern of a specific facility, peak time, off-peak times, all of those details as well. So another portion to add on is that, as some of the early speakers also mentioned, was that in order to do more with less, how do we optimize our workforce in the sense of if we can't place as many cleaners, or let's say our cleaning team has more chances of getting infected in certain kind of property, then how do we optimize the workforce? And then this is where especially robotics is coming into picture. We have come across many kind of robots which, and in fact, we're also working on some portions of the robotics where we are seeing that in form of disinfectation all the way to toilet cleaning robot or floor scrubbing robots will play a big part in the and become a norm in the future. Yeah, so as reimagining the future of the tech-enabled workplaces, as we're working more and more with the smart city projects or the smart campus, smart building projects, what we've also identified is that more and more the different silos that are still ongoing and under the FM domain are getting integrated under master facility management platforms, such that which have individual solutions, experts in the sense of, for example, we are focused on smart cleaning, such similar way different players are actually focused on developing tech solution, being subject matter experts in security, etc., visitor management, all the way to cafeteria management, and all these systems are given access to very specific vendors or users, I should add on. So all of these systems are being bundled under master platforms such that the FM teams will have single access and some form of data analytics, machine learning based predictive models, etc., which kind of help them to have a unified platform. And while all of these different sub vendors will keep operating in their own way, also to add on in terms of the digital twins that are being made for physical assets or sensor-based monitoring systems for machines, etc., will also help improve the overall maintenance of the overall maintenance portion, physical maintenance portions of the facilities. So just to a little bit elaborate also on what's possible for the different tech portions that we discuss about. So for example, IoT-based monitoring to, so let me emphasize and share some case studies and data from the projects that we have done in the sense of to give a real-world deployment example. So for example, we have deployments such as a commercial building, a mix of office and retail, where we have deployed smart washroom systems across 60 washrooms, for example, and the cleaning team used to go there every day around every hour or every 45 minutes, around 500 to 600 times a day of spot checks across those 60 washrooms. And now we have been able to cut it down to around 70 to 80 times a day. So that's the kind of cut down that can happen from predictive model, AI-based model from real-time monitoring systems. So I'm giving an example of smart washroom all the way to so currently, if we are able to cut down around let's say if 15-20% of the overall manpower, once the robot integration, all of that happens, it can go all the way up to 50 or 60%, and that's where major part of the optimization will also come in. So all of this in the sense of how does it, because the end costing for customer, a property or a tenant has to remain same. So again, how, as Mr. Amit also mentioned, that when we package all these tech solutions as an offering to an end customer, how do we make sure that there's still a positive ROI for the end customer, or they still make financial or economic viability out of these tech solutions? So again, in a lot of the cases, what we are observing is that there's a direct manpower saving component. So in the sense of, for example, we operate on a model of leasing model, OPEX model as well. Apart from a CapEx OPEX model, and then the leasing cost can actually shave off most of the, the manpower saving cost can actually shave off most of the leasing costs. So that's where most of our clients actually still observe positive ROI. So this was just a specific example from Smartly Inside, but again, we have heard about and seen use cases where through IoT-based HVAC management or temperature monitoring, or all the way to security optimization, facilities and FM teams have observed 20 to 30% manpower saving, which can then justify the ROI for the deployment and making a business case to the end customer. Yep, so that's it from my side.
We'll be taking up the Q&A section. But before that, I would like to share some of the poll results which we have with us. So we had conducted poll number 1, for which I'll be sharing the results. So we had asked, at what capacity do you think the workplaces should be functioning in the near future? So we have got the maximum in the polls to be at 50% capacity. So we had conducted a next poll number 2, which was speaking about which of the following practices do you see becoming a major part of the workplace routine? So the maximum option which people have selected is social distancing, which will become a workplace routine. We had conducted poll number 3 as well, wherein we had asked, when do you expect to see the mainstream adoption of robots in cleaning operations? So the maximum answer which we have got is 1 to 3 years. Last, we had conducted a poll number 4, wherein we had asked, do you think automation will become a new norm in the facility management? And we have got a maximum answer at 95% to be yes. All right, moving on to Q&A section. I request all the panelists to be present during these questions. The first question which we have is, how do we ensure compliance in the hospitality industry? And are there any innovative solutions to look at for hotels? I'll repeat that question for the panelists. This question goes to Mr. C. Chia.
Yeah.
The question goes to you, sir, that how do we ensure compliance in the hospitality industry? And are there any innovative solutions to look at for hotels?
Well, the standards of the in hospitality sector has always been relatively high. I mean, the only difference is that maybe in terms of the, I mean, like for example, in hospitality, I will assume that we are talking about the whole spectrum, but the general ones that we are not normally talking about will include your hotels, the hotel rooms. Generally, the standards of the hotel rooms are really quite high in the sense that the bed sheets, the general cleaning, the toilets, all these are already cleaned on a regular basis. But due to the high turnover and frequency of such facilities, the cleaning are typically not very thorough. So going forward, the standards will most likely have to change. I mean, they will have to be a more detailed, rostered downtime for some of these rooms, so that like I mentioned earlier on in my presentation as well, that the regular periodic disinfection work will have to become a norm. So that is something that will most likely have to come in. And then, of course, when we do such disinfection work, the type of chemicals and the type of training that the cleaning team or the housekeeping team has to do, the training has to be there as well. And in terms of technology, actually we have brought in an equipment from US recently, about a month ago. It's actually a portable misting equipment that are actually suitable to be used in a confined space, an office room or hotel room, where you actually can use chemicals to actually disinfect the room quite fast. And this particular equipment uses dry misting, unlike the usual misting equipment that's been out there. And it's particularly useful for COVID-19 because as we all know, even Dr. Anand mentioned earlier on that the COVID-19 virus is actually mostly transmitted through droplets, and the pathogens are actually in the air. So if you actually just use normal misting spray, you actually could potentially spread the virus rather than kill the virus. So this particular machine that we brought in actually uses dry misting, and it actually hooks onto the pathogens and actually bring it down to the ground, and you just need to vacuum it off or wipe it off. So you can't be clean. So you help to shorten the time. Number one, you increase the kill rate of the virus. Number two, you actually shorten the time to turn around premises, whether it's an office or hospital room or even hotel rooms. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Teacher. I would like to take the same question to Mr. Love. Love, what do you believe that how to ensure compliance in hospitality industry in terms of innovative solutions? Yeah, Love, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So just to add on to what Mr. Shicha has explained, other tech. So I'll cover more from the tech angle in the sense of how systems can be used of proof of audit or proof of compliance, in the sense of, as I mentioned in the if let's say for a property, if there is a norm to do certain number of checks or cleaning, there are systems in place, which beacon-based system, etc., which can actually measure if the cleaner actually cleaning team or the operation team actually went into that area that specific number of times, or did they follow certain loops, etc. So those things can also become as a point of audit, also to add on other monitoring systems which can help with that.
Thanks, Love. Thanks for that. I would like to take this next question to Mr. Amit Lal. Mr. Amit, am I audible to you?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I am able to hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr.
All
Amit,
right.
the question is for you. As per NBC,
Okay.
1/100 ratio, 1:100 ratio should be followed on a 10,000 square foot floor. That is, for every 100 square feet, one person is permitted to work. This is
Okay.
as NBC. but flex spaces generally offer only 1:60 ratio.
That's right. That's right.
How do you see these designs impacting social distancing in today's scenario going forward?
So the first one you said is 1/100, right?
Yeah,
100 square feet per employee.
Yeah.
Yes, flex spaces do have a lesser space available per employee, which is about 60 to 80.
Yes.
Now that's definitely not compliant to the social distancing norms that we are going to observe to ensure safety from COVID at the workplace. So those will have to change. So there is definitely a direct hit to the co-working model in the intermediate term at least, and I'm sure they will have to innovate a bit to really accommodate in terms of how they utilize the space among their users, because in the co-working space the frequency of people using the same space over and over again is quite high as compared to your own offices. So I see that downside there or flip side there for their business model. So like it has challenged a lot of other business models, co-working space is definitely bound to be impacted because of this. But it's just to say that they will have a lesser utilization just to ensure the social distancing norms. But surely there's innovation awaiting them as well, and I'm sure that's on way. So while the recommendation is that even from a 100 square feet point of view, we will see a much higher square footage per employee. So space inefficiencies will set in, but a long time using technology, space planning, effective space planning, companies will somehow balance the overall portfolio. And when you look at it in terms of the cost, there is a fixed cost from a real estate point of view, how that can be optimized using technology. But at the same time, there are a lot of variable costs as well pertaining to energy, pertaining to facility management, and various other cost heads within this domain. So all of those will have to be spruced up and analyzed and then optimized over the period. So I think space is definitely going to take a hit. Co-working definitely going to take a hit, but that's going to be the norm. So we need to adjust ourselves, our business models to live with that situation, at least in the interim and intermediate.
Got it. Yeah. The next question is to Mr. Sechia. Amit, please feel free to also contribute for this question.
Sure.
The question comes in this form: what could be the new norms for FM managers?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So I think let me start on this one. I really see empathy being the first one, because you really need to be empathetic to understand the diverse population that you're going to be working with, which means your own employees as well as the client employees, right? You're catering to both of them. And in this situation, it's really important for us to help them build that confidence to get back to work and make the facility go back to life again. So that's empathy is the biggest ask. Then the right training and the what do you say? The sensitization, the knowledge, sharing is really important. So they have to be knowledge managers more than operational managers. So I think these are the two key asks which I see that are really important in going forward. But more importantly, on the operational side, technology is really important for them to really be aware of, be able to operate, and in terms of the operating procedures, whether to do with sanitization, cleaning, hygiene, wellness, even health and security. So these are the areas which they really need to scale up their capabilities in and be up to speed. Yeah. I hope I'm able to answer the question. Yeah. Over to you.
I definitely agree with Amit. But I think the greatest challenge that I see as well, but I think that might hopefully not for too long, is also the availability of PPE that our people can gain access to. Currently, because there's a global crisis, so you have a global shortage of PPEs as well. And I think besides the training, besides the workflow, changing the mindset, I think the people who go back to work or are working every day must feel safe to at least go into work.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Sisha. I would like to take the next question here. This would be tossed to Love. Love, the next question comes is what is the ROI in terms of adapting technology-enabled solutions for facility management?
Actually, to answer this question, frankly, it varies a lot. I mean, depending on the kind of operations one has, all the way to how much optimization can happen on the ground, and given that what kind of operations they're running, or uh, what processes still need to be followed, or are kind of put as a requirement from the client side. So to give an example, I mean, we have had deployments, for example, at a commercial building where office location with around 30 floors, where we were doing smart washrooms deployment for around 80 washrooms, where we were able to cut down from around 12 manpower to 6 manpower, so almost 50% manpower saving. Versus there were also projects where which was already very understaffed, and then the whole one wing was actually managed by only 1 or 2 cleaners, so there was no room for any kind of optimization of manpower or manpower saving. So if, let's say, the property is done in a normal way, there are possibilities of optimizing it and doing a cost saving of, and then not just manpower, I mean, also in terms of material saving, or let's say time saving in terms of processes, etc. So there are cases where it can happen all the way from 30 to 50%, which can actually justify the tech adoption costs and the ROI overall. So if you can share a specific example, we can actually share more on that here.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Love. Amit, are you still online? Are you able to hear me? Amit, am I audible? Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Mr. Sithia, this would be for you. Please put some light and suggestions on how the housekeeping personnel should clean the workstations. As a normal procedure, they're using the same cloth for cleaning all workstations. So the question is how the housekeeping personnel should clean the workstations in these times.
Well, that's why I mentioned earlier on, a lot of it involves a change of mindset. It also involves a change of work process as well. I think if we, right now, I mean, the process is obviously different. The cloth that they use and the type of chemical that they use for all the high touch point areas like your keyboards, your phones, all the railings, the handlebars, the doorknobs, or the meeting room tables, the frequency has already increased, and the type of chemicals that my cleaners use will be different on site. I think during this period is not really the challenge, but the challenge is if we go back to normal days when the COVID-19 is over. I think that is then a question of whether it's a client willing to pay for that timing, additional chemicals and additional work to be done, or do we go back to the usual way of cleaning everything? So like I said earlier on, I don't have an answer for that, but the easiest way to do that really will be to introduce different levels of disinfection cleaning into the routine work. I don't think it's realistic to do that every day because cost and time will go up. But whether is it how frequent is frequent when we're back to normal? Is it every week or is it every 2 weeks? And then what are the areas that we need to focus on? I think that will be something that we all have to learn when this whole episode is over.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sithia. And this brings us to the end of this webinar. My apologies, sincere apologies from my side and from team because we were not able to take all the questions from all the participants. However, we'll be sharing it via email or whatever questions have been left. We'll communicate it with our panelists and we'll get back to it. I would personally, and from me and my team, I would like to thank Mr. Sichia, Mr. Amit Lal, Mr. Love Agarwal for, and also Dr. Kiran, who left the session because he had to again attend the current scenario in a hospital. So I thank all the panelists for giving their time. I also would like to thank all the attendees who are there in this webinar. This is not just a mere participation for you guys. It also shows your dedication and responsibility towards yourself and to your workplace. I thank you again, one and everyone, for the participation in this webinar. Hope to connect more for future more sessions.